Well, Joe, what are your early impressions? I think the first thing I wanted to ask you, and we'll get to the Cardinals in a minute. What did you make of the first ever wild card round where you had all these series and they weren't the coin flip games that we're used to and frankly didn't like?
Well, let's not kid ourselves. Best of three is also a coin flip.
Well, yes.
I think it's a bad way. Okay, there's two separate conversations. One is, is it good to go 162 games and then play a best of three? No. It's a bad format. But it is, when you're in it, if you turn that part of your brain off, it's a lot of fun. It's the closest thing we really get to March Madness in baseball. I sat there Friday and Saturday and watched a ton of baseball. And it was all meaning. I mean, meaning is, it's a little artificial, right? I mean, it's meaningful because you're making it a best of three, which means Saturday is going to be all elimination games, and Friday is teams trying to avoid playing an elimination game on Saturday. So once you have a best of three, you're creating that meaning. And it was enjoyable, and it was exciting. We saw some very, very good baseball. I don't think this got talked up enough. There was a lot of great defense played in these games. I just think you saw some of the best players in the game playing playoff baseball, and that's always a good thing. Obviously, it gets a little buried on Saturday beyond college football, depending on where you are. Even I'm a big college football guy. I think in the future, if the season ends on a Sunday, these games will have the week to themselves, and I think that'll be good for baseball. And like I say, if you're trying to attract more casual fans, a best of three is the way to do it.
And I think, look, let me take off my Fred Bird costumes, so to speak, and say this. I think it's good when there's new blood in the postseason, teams that haven't been there for a long time, Seattle, and even the Phillies qualify. And then the Phillies march into Atlanta and get that first game, which was pretty huge. Seattle's winning this one. I don't know if they can hang on, but it's in the sixth inning down in Houston. And I know the Guardians are not a team that hasn't been in the postseason, since ancient times. I know that. But it's just fun to see, Tito Francona and some of their stars back in it and those great pitchers they have. I mean, they're a fun team to watch. And I'm really looking forward to that series, the Guardians and the Yankees. I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Guardians. We saw what the pitching can do. Shane Bieber, of course, won Cy Young in the short season. Tristan McKenzie is one of the most watchable pitchers out there. And if you ever get a chance to hear an interview, a very thoughtful guy, too. Just a really easy guy to root for. All those arms coming out of the bullpen. Jose Ramirez, who quietly finished third in the MVP voting a couple of years in a row, and still I don't think is really known outside of about a small radius outside of Progressive Field or whatever they're calling it now. You're right. It's a lot of guys. They play this style of baseball that it's not terribly productive. If you look at their offense, Bernie, it's basically a little bit below average. They're not scoring a ton of runs, but people enjoy this contact hitting, first to third, base stealing style. It is aesthetically pleasing for a lot of baseball fans. So, as you say, I think people will enjoy watching this. They get the primetime slot tonight against the Yankees.
Yeah, and sort of, this is such a cliche, but those teams have such contrasting styles. But that's part of the appeal. That's part of the charm of the matchups. Joe, just being a baseball fan, but a Yankee fan as well, of course, any impressions of Harrison Bader so far?
I mean, I loved Bader when he was with the Cardinals, and I saw a lot of him there. Give me a center fielder who can play the position, can run the bases, and can hit enough to be effective. I'll take that. I wanted him to be the regular, bat him ninth against righties, and then move him up in the lineup against lefties. He's always had that pretty big platoon split. But I had a positive impression of Bader. For 5 years he was at St. Louis. Here we've barely seen him. He just came back off the IL a couple weeks back. He's an important guy for this team. It's not a great defensive team, and when you put Bader in center and move Judge to right, and Judge has been an adequate center fielder, but Bader is an upgrade. Bader is a true plus 15. He's a true center fielder, which the Yankees really haven't had since Brett Gardner was 10 years younger. So I think he'll have an impact. The Yankees have made this effort. They traded for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. They traded for Jose Trevino. They've traded for Bader. They've wanted to get better up the middle, and Bader is a big part of that. I like that he signed for next year. I think a healthy Harrison Bader playing at 29 next year, in the walk year, I think he can end up being a really popular player here in New York because of the playing style, because he's just so good in center.
And, his splits the whole time he was a Cardinal, he hit so much better. He was so much better offensively away from Busch Stadium. And I think that will kind of weigh in next year as well. Joe, another reason why I'm looking forward to the Yankees and the Guardians is Matt Carpenter. And what a great story he was this year. Then he, fractured a foot. But now he's back. He's on the roster. I don't know what's realistic to expect from him, but they obviously felt good about his physical condition. But how do you think he'll be used in this series?
Well, good enough is how I'd put it. I remember, they don't have DJ LeMahieu. It was kind of like they had these fragile guys at the back end of the roster, and they had to basically figure out who was going to go on the roster. A bunch of relievers were hurt. DJ LeMahieu has a broken foot. So I think they need Carpenter, Bernie. I ran the numbers today. He started 35 times for this team, and they scored nearly 7 runs a game when he started.
Wow.
In all the other games, they averaged about 4.5 runs a game. I mean, I'm not saying that's the true difference of Matt Carpenter, 2.5 runs a game, but when you look at the drop-off in some of the other hitters, the Yankees have a real problem. Aaron Judge carried this offense in the second half. It was a well below average offense outside of Aaron Judge. It's a lot of, flawed right-handed hitters, Torres and Donaldson, and even Anthony Rizzo fell off towards the second half. They really need Carpenter in this lineup. And, I just don't know how much you can give. I don't think he's going to be able to run the bases very well. I don't think they're going to be able to put him in the field. It's just going to be his role if he plays. And, I'm not even sure he's ready for that. I think if it was September 15th, he wouldn't be on the roster. But it's October 11th, and you're out of time.
Joe, how much did you enjoy watching Aaron Judge? I mean, all season, but especially when the drama was elevated and he was sort of racing against time to get to 62. I thought it was, as a fan, man, Pujols and Judge, no matter how you want to rank what they did, here's a cliche again, too. It's just so great for baseball. It was so much fun. But just as a Yankee fan and a baseball fan, what did the Judge thing mean to you?
I wish it could have been just about Aaron Judge having a huge season. That part of it was great. He handled himself beautifully. I mean, with all the stuff going on and, not getting pitched to, and literally the stadium stopping everything when he pitched, when he batted. It was just an amazing thing to watch. But because it got caught up in this whole real home run record and Roger Maris Jr., and, guys coming out and basically rehashing the steroid wars of 20 years ago, it was hard to fully enjoy it. And I'm disappointed. I really do wish that it had been more about Aaron Judge and less about rehashing that 20-year-old story. Because
100%.
it should have been. It shouldn't have been. That stuff shouldn't have been dragged into it. It should have just been, look at this incredible incredible hitter at his peak, trying to hit 60 home runs, which only has been done 9 times, and possibly winning a Triple Crown. I mean, he had a legitimate shot. He's actually leading all 3 categories very briefly on like a Wednesday with a week to go. And then, he fell off a little bit, and Luis Arias got himself together, and he didn't win the batting title. But to me, the Triple Crown chase was as interesting as trying to set the American League home run record, which, by the way, nobody's cared about individual league records for a long time. So.
I'm with you. I got so sick and tired of these needless debates that, to me, were completely irrelevant. And it's just like, what? I went on a rant last week, and I said something to the effect, it was like, because I know we have some of my listeners are in this group, and I'm not trying to run them away, but it's like, for all you people that think, Barry Bonds, ruined baseball or whatever it is you're charging him with, I said, you know what? You're ruining baseball because you can't let it go. And all you do, a guy like Aaron Judge, who has nothing to do with any of that, you can't even enjoy it, and you just start whining about steroids and what happened, like you said, 20 years ago. You're ruining the game because I would like to enjoy the game. And people like you don't want me to do that. So is that a good speech?
Fans, Bernie. Not just fans. It was members of the media. It was the actual MLB network doing segments on this stuff. It's like, shut up. Just celebrate the guy. Don't have this fight again. This fight was miserable. I lived through this fight 20 years ago. It was miserable then. It's miserable now.
No, it's probably worse now, really, if you think about it. Anyway, but I agree with you 100%. I'm so glad you said that. All right, you look at the history between the Padres and the Dodgers, and first of all, the first thing we say is that it's a short series, so all bets are off. I mean, the randomness of October is always there. But how do the Padres beat the Dodgers? I mean, if you think about what's got to happen for them.
Their stars have to show up. They beat the Mets. Darvish shoved, Musgrove shoved, but it was the bottom of the order that did the work. Trent Grisham, who hit $180 last year and didn't write any books, ended up being the big hero of the series. Ha-Seong Kim had a big series. Austin Nola. Soto and Machado didn't do a whole lot. I think their stars have to step up. Their starting pitchers are going to have to do that again. Snell, Musgrove, it's obviously Clevenger tonight because they come in off rotation. But they've got to get more out of the top end of the lineup. It's going to be a situation where you're going to have to win some close games. Josh Hader at the back end was terrible in August and better in September. They don't have a deep bullpen. Got a couple guys, Luis Garcia, Robert Suarez. But the front of that roster is really going to have to come through. I mean, you don't beat the Dodgers accidentally. You're going to have to play really, really well for 5 games. It's the one series, Bernie, that I pegged as a sweep for the Dodgers, obviously. I couldn't find a path. I can find a path for the Guardians. I can find a path for the Phillies, the Mariners. I have a really hard time finding a path for the Padres.
Yeah, and especially when they got to face those 3 left-handers in a row. They're kind of a mediocre team against left-handed pitching this year, and that's something to keep an eye on too. Joe, I thought your take. I'm not saying this because you're my friend, and I've been a fan of your work for all these years. But I liked your take a lot on the Cardinals in terms of that loss to the Phillies. And so you had some objections to manager Ali Marmol, but you were not as irate, not in the least, the way maybe I was and many people here were in terms of the Ryan Helsley situation. But you took some issue with some other things. So please share those feelings because I enjoyed your perspective.
Yeah, I hated bringing the infield halfway. To go back to this, it was bases loaded, 1 out, a 2-1 ball game. They bring in Andres Palante, who throws ground balls all of the time. It's his entire job. I don't have to tell you that. And to me, that was a situation where you're saying, we want to throw 1 pitch and get out of this game. Gene Scorer was up, ground ball hitter. You play the infield back, you get 2. At worst, you get 1. The game's tied. You probably go to the bottom of the 9th in a tied game at home. Bringing the infield in brings in all of these other bad outcomes, which is exactly what happened. The ball got by Edman for 2 runs. The next ball to Goldschmidt, instead of possibly being, a play at first end of the inning, he tries to go home and get the runner. The runner's safe, and now the whole inning is blown up on you. I just hated that decision. You brought in the guy who can get the double play that ends the game. And to bring the infield in halfway to get the runner at the plate, I just didn't understand that as the home team with 1 out in the inning. I didn't understand the strategy. That was the one thing. I know everybody's focused on the pitching choice, and I was really much more focused on the decision to bring the infield halfway.
And I have to say that the more and more I think about it, look, I raised hell about where they played the infield in that situation. I definitely raised hell. But your thoughts on this help sort of twist me a little bit in terms of putting more weight on that rather than the Helsley thing, which was bad. But your point, and you just you just gave it to us again, even after that big blow-up with Helsley, they had a chance, 1 pitch, to get out of the inning and win that game, which, if you think about it, is pretty amazing. And that's what Palante's done all season. And that was a huge screw-up. And frankly, I should have made more of a big deal about that because they could have they could have erased whatever mistakes were made in terms of Helsley. They could have erased it with 1 ground ball to Edman.
And even if you don't get 2 outs in that situation, get 1, tie game. You're at home against the Phillies bullpen. I like your chances. It was putting too much. Again, on the road, you play that differently. A tied game, maybe you play that differently. But up 1 at home, I didn't understand the choice. It turns out, Bernie, a lot of things could have happened, and it turns out that Gene Segura hit like the 1 ground ball that you can say, oh, if he'd done it this way. That's just bad.
Sure.
That's bad luck. A little bit. Gene Segura hits ground balls to the right side. It's what he does. So it was probably more likely that he was going to do that than he was going to do just about anything else. But it's just, and everything, like I said, everything feeds on that. It's, you look at the Goldschmidt play. Well, if there are 2 outs, the inning's over. You look at the Arenado play. He really seemed to be trying to rush it to turn that into a double play. The ball got away from him. I think they scored it a hit. It was kind of an awkward play.
Right.
Just the whole thing fell apart. And even at that, And when I talk about the Phillies bullpen, hey, look, you ended up with a run in the bottom of the ninth and a tying run at the plate. If you just get one out on the Segura play, you probably win the game. It's that, like I say, you and I disagree about the Helsley thing, and I went through it. It's probably too much to do on the radio because it's a very detailed thing, and that's fine. You and I disagree with that, but I think we agree that bringing the infield in was just a huge mistake.
And Joe, real quick, yeah, and I totally get your point about Helsley. If he doesn't tell the manager how he's feeling, and that really led to all that, then yeah, a lot of that's on him. There's no doubt about it. I summed it up right there. I think it's a valid point. One more quickie, because I'm sorry to keep you away from your undivided attention on baseball. I also thought
I got all day.
Okay, I also thought I thought the same as you did. Not a second guess. We both thought this in advance. As much as Albert Pujols has been enthralling to watch and as effective as he's been, I didn't understand this rush to bat him second against Wheeler and Nola on consecutive days. That seemed a little too cute to me, and it's nothing against Albert. I mean, he can hit right-handed pitchers down the stretch. He was. But he's beating up on Reds and Pirates and, Cubs. It was a whole different test when you're asking him to step up against those guys. And so I just didn't get it. I was really disappointed in that.
Yeah, I was surprised. If you look at the last 2 months, he had like an 890, 900 OPS, something like that against right-handed pitchers. I was a little surprised to see that, and I kind of made me think a little bit about the move. But again, excuse me, Bernie, you make the point. He's doing that against a lot of these really bad NL Central staffs, and I think that was part of the story coming in. But the bigger issue for me is just the shape of Pujols' performance. He's a right-handed hitter who's the slowest non-Molina in baseball. He might be even slower than Yachty at this point. He just got no business batting second. He's the shape of hitter who should never be hitting second. And he did hit into a key double play in that series.
He did.
He hit the ball hard, but, he pulls that ball out of the infield if he's going to help you. He's got to hit the ball in the air. And it was just very, very strange decision, especially when you had, the best stretch of baseball the Cardinals played this year was with Nootbaar and Donovan hitting 1-2 ahead of Goldschmidt and Arenado.
That's right. Yep.
And I would have absolutely stacked the two lefties there against Wheeler and Nola and just begged Rob Thompson to go to his bullpen. If you want to go to the bullpen to match up against these two guys, you go right ahead. Take Wheeler and Nola out. We'll take our chances.
Yeah, it's so right.
I did not understand hitting Pujols second at all.
No, I'm with you. And the numbers, and I don't have them in front of me, but trust me, they're great. Second half of the season, whenever Nootbaar batted first and Donovan batted second, the numbers were phenomenal. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, so, and the dudes also hit left-handed pitching very well. I mean, really well. So there's no platoon disadvantage with that too. So, Joe, before we say goodbye for now, it's great to catch up with you again. Absolutely loved it as always. What's the best way for people to check out the newsletter? I know actually they can sample it, but listen, your newsletter's great all year, but man, it's particularly delightful during the postseason because you write and you write and you write, and it's so fun to see what you have to say about each one of these games because I always learn stuff. So I want people to get the newsletter and support all your hard work.
I appreciate that. If you go to the joesheehan.com right now, you can see excerpts of 3 of my 4 division series previews. I've actually posted the Mariners-Astros preview, which totally had me thinking Verlander was going to give up 6 runs today. I totally wrote about that.
Right.
You can see that in its entirety and gives you a real sense of what I do. If you scroll back on that page, you can actually see a complete piece from last week, and I don't remember which one I posted. But about once a week, I post a free piece. So if people, if they want to get the newsletter, go through that archive, get a sense of what I do. Also follow me on Twitter at Joe_Sheehan. And like I say, I love writing about baseball. I hope people will enjoy reading my stuff and they'll subscribe.
And another one popped up in the box. Like you said, you just put on the Yankees Guardians preview and Dodgers Padres previews, all in one newsletter. I can't wait to dig in once I get off the air. Well, thanks, Joe. I think you need to drop more food stuff into your newsletters as well. So
I can only make a pot roast. That's all I can do.
Hey, I had, by the way, speaking of all that, I had Will Leach and his dad in the home. Actually, it was the final weekend of the regular season. You know, they went to all 3 games, Pools, Molina's last 3. So, of course, I just brought some barbecue in. I didn't actually make it, but it was pretty cool hanging out with Will and his dad, you know, and it reminded me because you and I were talking about at dinner. You know, you and I tend at times to get a little too hermit-like, I guess is the way to put it. And every now and then it's a good reminder that you can really enjoy somebody's company and really have a wonderful day. So I wanted to tell you that.
Yeah, no, I've never met Mr. Leach, but Will's a friend, and I not got to hang out with him too many times. But he lives in Georgia now. But fantastic guy. I envy you. That must have been a lot of fun watching ball with those 2 guys. Watching
Illinois football.
Well,
because hey, they're bringing the leather helmet era back, man, and they're ranked. They're having a really fun season. If you like 9-6 games, especially. So, thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Brady. Take care.
All right, that's our guy, Joe Sheehan. Joe, might just call him Joe Pot Roast Sheehan from now on. You know. I got a great laugh at him just by bringing that up right off at the top of the interview.
That is perfect.
So, I know he just howled. That's what I wanted to hear. So anyway, but he listen. This is why this guy's so smart. Like, he brought up a couple things, and he didn't write like a novel about it, but he brought up a couple things that bothered him about Marmol's managing, and he put more weight on the decision where to play the infield. And I'm not changing my mind. I'm not saying, well, yeah, he didn't screw up with Halsey. Oh, I'm not saying that at all. He screwed up big time because he just let it happen. He let it spin out of control before intervening, and he had a chance to intervene and not make it so perilous for his team, and he failed that test. But, yeah, I do think Joe's right. If, in fact, Helsley, in effect, let's be blunt here, if he lied or did not tell the truth about how that finger was feeling, well, it's kind of hard for the manager to be a mind reader. But that only goes so far, because once it's obvious he can't find home plate with his pitches and they're getting wilder by the second, it doesn't matter what he told you. Follow what your eyes are telling you, right?
Yes.
So there's a way to kind of find a lot of fault with both aspects of that. But I'll repeat it and then we'll take a break. But on the other hand, even with that calamity, if they have the infield set up the way they should have been, a no-brainer, you bring in a ground ball pitcher with a 64% ground ball rate, which is incredible. That's Palante. And he does exactly what you want him to do. Get a ground ball that can be turned into a double play, and you win game 1 and you survive. But no, he's got to get cute. I don't know. I don't buy the explanation. I just don't buy it. Get it out of here. Not playing them at double play depth. And Palante, poor Palante, does exactly what you brought him in to do. And because of the way you chose to set up your infield, you blew it as a manager. So, yeah, as I continue to kind of stew on this, the madder I get about that decision with the infield depth.
That was another in a series of things in that entire process, Bernie, where the only thing, and we said it on Friday when I was on the air with you, I said, meltdown was all I could think of. It was like all logic went out the door with decision-making during that inning. And it's hard to believe a franchise that has been pretty good about taking care of things like that and having guys prepared and having players gone through situations and they're not going to get overwhelmed. They're not going to start throwing the ball around the infield and stuff like that. Everything just was like erased. All that stuff was like all that quality gone for one half inning of baseball, and it cost them everything. And it's amazing how all that work just disappeared. Just poof. I think that was one of the things Derek had written about, or was in. Maybe it was the headline in one of his stories. It says, "Poof, it's gone. That's it. There is no more." They blew it right there.
And they just I'm convinced that, listen, we'll never know, but I'm confident if they win Game 1, especially the way they did,
Yes.
2-0 would have been great. But even after surviving a major scare in the ninth inning and getting out of there with a W, I'm really confident they would have won that series. Now, it doesn't mean they would have won Game 2, but they also would have went into Game 2 with a whole different mindset, and there would have been more life, more confidence. They wouldn't have that aftershock still, they were stunned and in Game 1, and then the aftershock carried over to Game 2. That's the best way to put it. But Joe's point, all of our points are right. Wheeler's fantastic. Nola's fantastic. Well, what happened once Wheeler left the game? They got to the Phillies bullpen. Their best reliever gave up a 2-run homer to a rookie to give the Cardinals a 2-0 lead. They never really, they were so defeated mentally that when Nola left that game, they couldn't get to the Phillies bullpen because they were already beaten.
Yes.
But if you look at the Phillies bullpen today, Ranger Suarez, he goes 3 1/3. He walked 5, only gives up 1 run, 3 hits, but the 1 run is a miracle since he walked so many guys. The Cardinals, who are great against left-handed starters, they would have done some damage to him. Then you get into that bullpen, and just like today, it was 7-3. I thought, okay, game over. I forgot about how bad the Phillies bullpen is. And the next thing you know, it's 7-6. Because 2 of those relievers, including Eflin at the end, who gave up 3 runs in the 9th or the 8th. So his 15 minutes of fame as a reliever, that's done now. You get into that bullpen, and you can really cause a lot of harm. But they never gave themselves a chance to do that in game 2 because they were so non-competitive. It was sickening.
Yeah, I likened it to the 2009 season, Bernie, when we remember what took place out there in Los Angeles. Franklin couldn't get an out. The ball got lost by Holliday.
Holliday, yeah. It was tough.
And it was one of those moments where you go, I don't think they're coming back from that. And that's the same kind of feel I had. It's just, like you said, tomorrow's another day, but in your mind you go, yeah, they're defeated already. It's like, we just blew this. We blew the game. And
I know. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget sitting there. And by then I was, back into the Vince Scully press box, and I was starting to write a column off that loss. And I'll never forget, it was an afternoon game, and so I don't know what time this was, L.A. time, but it was probably late afternoon in L.A. because it was still light out.
Yeah.
But it was getting a little darker. And I'll never forget just looking down and seeing Matt Holliday with his wonderful wife, Leslie. And, I don't know if there was 1 or 2 of his kids. But to get to the team bus or wherever you're going, you actually walk on the field and you go through the outfield gate. And that's usually where the bus is. And I remember Holliday, walking, and he's such a wonderful guy, and he had his head down. And he was so down. And I remember watching Leslie just kind of grab him and, put her arm around him and hug him to try to just, and I was thinking, not in terms of like, well, Holliday screwed up, look at that. It wasn't that. But I just thought, man, I can only imagine the way the entire team is bummed out about all of this. They were just as bummed out, and no one was mad at Holliday. It was just one of those things, The ball was hit on a line, but it kind of knuckled a little bit, and it's just one of those things. It was one of those balls. It didn't have enough elevation. It wasn't exactly a rocket line drive. It was kind of a little bit of a knuckler, and it's just, what are you going to do, man? That's baseball. But you're right. We all flew back to St. Louis, the writers, and I remember walking in the ballpark that Saturday thinking, nah, just not going to happen.
I'm right there with you, and it was the same exact feeling I had this past Saturday. Mm-hmm. It was like, not going to happen. I didn't have any confidence that they had anything going. Newbar hits a double in the first inning, and my eyes kind of went up and went, oh, maybe. And then, they didn't score, and I was like, no. Then you saw that ball that Harper crushed off that, you mentioned yesterday, that great at bat. It was like, oh, yeah. It might as well be 7-0 right now. 1-0 that's it. There will be nothing good to come out of tonight's ball game for the
And
Cubs.
how about Bryce Harper, 3 hits today? So you see, all of a sudden, that's what happens, man.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
That's why I talk about lightning strikes. Bryce Harper was down, really down offensively, coming back from that injury, just not dangerous really much at all. And the numbers bear that out. But like I was talking about yesterday, but that guy's such a pro and he's so smart. He knew he was compromised physically with that elbow, and he had the broken thumb or whatever that healed. And he's just like, yeah, but if I'm looking for a curveball and he throws me one, I can hit that thing out of the park. I mean, so I'm just going to go up there looking for the curveball. He got it, boom. And that was just a devastating early punch to the Cardinals because they were already reeling. And even though that's a solo home run, that just brought them down even more. And they just weren't they lost their competitive character in that game, and it was really disappointing, except for Pujols and Molina at the end. But anyway, all he needed was that one blast, right? Now all of a sudden he's going down in Atlanta and getting 3 hits in a game, and they win 7. They score 7 runs on the Braves. So Philadelphia is so far. They are the lightning strike so far this October. Will they last? I don't know, but that you got to give them credit. The way they took advantage of the Cardinals' weakness and jumped on it and didn't let that opportunity slip away in Game 1, I admire them. Because, the other team's going to screw up, and they're going to screw up big sometimes. But how many times do we see teams screw up and then the other team does not take advantage of it, right?
Oh, 100%. Agreed.
So,
you mentioned Harper. He's the kind of guy, because I think we all felt, his thumb, he's compromised, he doesn't have it. He could just take this whole postseason over and win this thing. And then I'll add from today's box score, I know I watched early on, believe it or not, Nick Castellanos started hitting the ball today. And he got 3 RBIs. And
he did.
There's another part. If those 2 guys go in that lineup, that could be a whole handful for the Atlanta Braves, because those 2 guys, when they're going, they're legit. They're legit difference makers. You already know you have the home run leader at the top of the lineup, and he's not hitting well, but all it takes is one swing. And Segura got another big RBI hit today, much like he did against the Cardinals. So look out there. That could be the lightning that you're speaking of.
Yeah, no doubt about it.